Hey, I'm here with my buddy Lexi. Lexi? All right. And this is her roadmap to success. Now, we just got done doing some work in the kennel, and so I'm going to go over that while it's still fresh in my brain. She doesn't like going in the kennel. The guardians put her in the kennel at night because she jumps up on the bed and licks their face at about 4 in the morning, and they prefer not to wake up at 4 in the morning. Yes, I'm going to hold you here for a minute just because it looks a little bit better if I have a puppy in the shot for this one. And so basically what we did is I went over some kennel training, some positive associations. So we came up with a word that means to go to the kennel. If you have a dog that's fearful of the kennel, you've been saying kennel, kennel up, and the dog doesn't like it, it's sometimes better if you come up with a new command word. It doesn't have the baggage of your old word. So we decided to come up with the word beach. And the guardians, basically, we sat on the floor, we threw a treat in there. Now, first she wouldn't go in there, so we put the treat outside the kennel. And we kind of had to create a breadcrumb. And she'd come and take this one. Okay, I'm here, I'll take this one, this one, this one. And the one inside, no, I'm gonna walk away. And so we kept on throwing the treats in there. Every time she goes in the kennel, even if it's just putting one paw in the kennel, then we're gonna say the command word every time it goes in her mouth. Remember, every time the treat goes in the dog's mouth, we should hear the command word immediately after the treat goes in the mouth. And then basically, and she would go over and get it and hear the word beach and then walk away. Normally, dogs that don't like the kennel, it's because the only time I'm putting the kennels on, I'm restrained and my guardians are about to leave me. So we want to help her practice going in the kennel and having good things happen. One of the suggestions I had was to get a bully stick, drill a hole through the end of one of the bully sticks, and then take a zip tie and zip it to the in the kennel at the low part of the kennel. So the only way the dog can chew on it is being inside the kennel. And the door's wide open. So the dog gets to go in the kennel whenever it wants, gets to chew as much as it wants, it gets to leave, and nobody's forcing it to stay in there. Now, something else the guardians might want to do is incorporate a little bit of feeding. Now, the video above talks about structured feeding, and I would continue doing that. If you're doing the feeding in the kennel, for this, what I'm talking about here is different than that. We're going to just put the bowl down, and if this is the kennel itself here, I put the bowl here. So let's say this is the kennel. I put the bowl here just so she's looking at the kennel while she's eating her food, but the bowl is about a foot away. And then after a while, I would get the bowl a little bit closer each meal. And it might be only an inch closer each time. You want it so subtle, she doesn't even recognize that it's getting closer. But eventually, she's like right up and almost touching her nose. Then we would actually take the bowl and put it over the lip so it's inside the kennel so she can go and eat, but she can stay outside the kennel. And eventually, then we would do the same thing where we move it a little bit further and further into the kennel so she actually go into the kennel to actually eat her food. This creates a positive association. Dogs like, she really likes eating. Yes, sweetheart. And so we're creating that positive association, and she doesn't have to go in the kennel, but she's looking at the kennel when she's eating when the bowl is outside of it, and eventually getting her closer and closer. And it's just like anything else, like getting into a hot tub. Like, ooh, ow, oh, oh, you know, and you just do it little by little. And that's basically the same sort of thing we're doing with her. Now, we can also leave treats in there. We probably should do that. Maybe pull like 5 treats out, tear them in half, and put them a little ramekin here. And then throughout the day, every time we go over and see that, we take that out, put one in there. And if she goes in and gets it, after a while, she'll follow you in there and she'll go in right away. But right now, even if she won't go in there, just throw it in there and leave the room. If she goes in there, she's not going to hear the word beach, which isn't ideal, but she's still getting that positive reinforcer. And after enough repetition, she'll gladly want to go in there. What we're looking for her is actually start going and hanging out in there on her own. Now, because this is more of the main hangout room, and that's kind of behind us is really where that room was, I would actually pull the kennel out during the evening when you guys are hanging out, put it right here, or right under the TV would be ideal. And then basically the guardians will get pretty good at their free throw shooting, because you want to just have a treat or some kibble and throw it into the kennel while you're sitting there watching TV. So you're far away, so she doesn't feel like you're going to go trap her in there. She practices going in there, hops in, gets a treat. We say the word beach, she hops out. And then she comes over and she might actually start whimpering, hey, throw another one in there. And again, that's what we want. We want her to want to go in there. Now, you see all the little twitchiness when I touch her, see how she jumps like that? That's because she has cortisol in her blood. Now, I'm pretty sure that what's been going on is the guardians have made the same mistake that it's probably the most common mistake people make with dogs, is if a dog's nervous, I'm going to pet you and reassure you. But for a dog, anything your dog is doing when you pet is what you're going to be specifically amplifying or reinforcing. And so if you have a fearful or stressed out dog, you'll make them more stressed out or more fearful or more excited or more nervous or happy or whatever it is. So basically, if she is nervous, you can let her know I'm here with you by putting your hand on her without amplifying it by petting her. Now, the higher a dog is, the more rank or social status they have. So if you have a dog that's fearful and you pick it up, you're rewarding the dog for being fearful, and that will amplify that as well. And so this cortisol in her blood, the jumpiness that she has when I touch her, and I should get a little better. Hey, sweetheart, yes. will get better and better as she gets more confident. And a lot of that is adding the rules and structure so that she'll be more, she'll see her guardians as being more of an authority figure than thinking that she's in charge, but the humans don't listen to me. And then the humans go out there and when they don't listen to me, they're going to be taken advantage of, and that stresses me out, and that puts the cortisol in my blood. This becomes a vicious cycle. So the more rules and structure we can provide her, actually, the better she's going to feel. Hey, let's hang on. Yes, I know. Now you see her licking her lips. That's a sign of stress. So I'm going to put her down here in a second, unless she settles down. But if you see your dog licking its lips a little bit, or is coming towards something and moving away, that's it saying, I'm not comfortable with that. So one of the things we like to do is have her practice being around other new people. So neighbors would be ideal because that way you don't have to drive so far away. But when they come over, we want to basically, like if she's over where that statue is in the couch, I might just take a treat out and put it here. And then and same thing for the kennel. Don't tell her to come and get it. Let her, make sure she sees it, but then put it there and leave it up to her. Your own prerogative. If you want to go get it, there's a good reward there. If you don't want to get it, nobody else is going to get it. I don't care. I'm not asking you to do it. But if we try to reward or entice the dog to do it, sometimes that causes them to be more fearful of it. If it's there and they come up to their own conclusion, I want to go get it, that makes them feel more confident about themselves. So the idea is, at first we put the treat here, she comes and gets it and then walks away. And the next time I put it here, then here, then here, then here. The idea is to get her getting closer and closer to me. Now, if she's leaning, like her back leg is out like that, she's saying, I'm uncomfortable. I'm trying to get away as fast as I can. So we keep on doing that until she comes and lingers here. Only when she's lingering here would I start offering a treat from my hand, and I'm going to offer it to the side. So the guest should hold it out to the side, and just keep your hand there, and don't entice her, don't call her name, and just make it available. If she won't come and take it out of my hand, I might put a treat here and then put my hand with a treat in it right there. Same principle we were using in the kennel. I'm almost there. I'll just extend a little bit more and get one more treat. And the idea is we want her to practice the same thing with the kennel. Approaching the kennel, going in, having something good happen, and then leaving. And the same sort of thing for here. I approach the human, and the closer I get, I still get a treat, and they're not trying to touch me, they're not looking at me, nothing bad in her mind is happening. And eventually she starts hanging out. Now, have your guest. If your guest reaches for her and she turns away, or she starts trying to move away, the guest needs to stop right away. The more that the guest or the people show her that they're listening to her, the more bold and confident she's going to become about that interaction. Then she'll start doing it more and more frequently. Now, for the kennel, like I said, I would recommend removing the bench in the bedroom so that she can't actually get on the bed, putting the dog bed in the bedroom, and I actually teach dogs to go to the dog bed, the same principle I use for the kennel. So I see the dog, see I have a treat, toss the treat on the kennel or on the dog bed, dog goes over and gets it, maybe we call that one Venezuela, that would be a long word, but whatever the word is that you want, and she licks it up and she walks away, and we toss another one. And we keep on doing that until she just starts like, I'm just going to go hang out on the dog bed because it's raining treats when I come here. And when she starts doing that, then we're going to throw the treat after she goes in there. And that's something you can do in the kennel. If she goes in the kennel and she's in there on her own, and you can toss a treat without it making a noise that will spook her, make sure you do that. But the idea is for her to accrue enough experiences of these positive interactions without anything negative happening so she gets more confident about it. Now, let me see, what else do we want to go over? We went over petting with a purpose and passive training. Petting with a purpose is telling the dog to do something before you pet it when the dog is initiating contact or nudging you, or if you just want to pet the dog. And whenever possible, try to pet her under her chin and say just the command word, just sit, just come. And try to come up with funny command words, especially for new stuff. And come up with a list of the official command words and say vocabulary to each other. If you're saying come here, the word is actually come. We just say vocabulary and the person says come. Just makes it easier on the dog. Let me see, what else? So petting with a purpose, even if you want to pet the dog, ask the dog to sit and then pet it under his chin and say the word sit and only the word sit, not good sit, just sit. And then after a while, the dog will start sitting in front of you to prepay for attention. When it does, make sure you do recognize, pet the dog. Otherwise, it'll go back to nudging you or jumping or barking at you for attention. Now, if you want to pet the dog or you see somebody's petting the dog and you suspect without a purpose, you say paycheck, that person needs to stop petting. The dog, we tell the dog to sit again. We pet her on the chin and say sit. Then we tell the person, actually, I asked the dog to sit and you didn't see it, blah, blah, blah. Now, passive training is really waiting for the dog to do the behavior organically. So every time that Lexi comes over to you, pet her and say come. Every time she sits next to you on her own volition, pet her and say sit. We're not enticing her at all. We're just recognizing and rewarding. I mentioned in the Guardian, a lot of people train their dogs to misbehave because the dog gets a dead bird and runs away. Well, we're going to chase it. Well, if now, or let's say the dog's out in the backyard having a great time yelling at a squirrel on the other side of the fence, and we're worried the neighbor's going to get upset. We go to the door, we say, come, the dog comes inside. It's like, well, listening to you represents the end of fun. I was having fun, I listened to you, I came inside, and now the fun is over. Next time I'm just not going to listen to you. So for passive training, if every time the dog comes to you in the house, you pet it and say, come, and then she gets to go play with baby or get some water or whatever it is. Now, like 99 times a day, I come to them, I hear the word come, and I get a little reward and get to do what I want. And one time a day, it's the end of fun. But 1 out of 99 times, that's actually a pretty good ratio. And now the dog is conditioned to come to you because it's how it's going to get the reward instead of barking or jumping up or doing all the rest of these things. For outside, we also need to train the dog to come outside. She comes outside unless there's a squirrel or rabbit or something she can't get to. Well, we need to practice coming outside. So every once in a while, if she won't come all the way to the door, it's a lot of times because coming to the door means you're going to put me inside and then we're done with fun. So just every once in a while, we don't have a lot of nice days left before it's going to get really cold. Go outside with a treat when she's out in the yard. Walk to the middle of the yard and just wait. When she comes over, give her the treat, say the word come, and let her go back to playing and come back inside. So let's say we walked 18 feet to get to the middle of the yard. Next time I would come back inside, get another treat, wait a minute or two, walk out 16 feet. Wait for her to come on her own volition, give her the treat and say come. Then 14, 12, and eventually you're getting her closer and closer to the door, and she's happy to come to the door because it just means I got a treat and I get to go back and play. And after a while, you can, when she comes to the door, sometimes you throw the treat in the house, she comes in the house and licks it up, you could say the word house or inside, and then let her go back outside again. And so sometimes when I come inside, it's I'm here for good, sometimes I get to go back and play. And so this way she gets to she feels more empowered, and that makes her feel more engaged and willing to want to do that particular activity again. Let me see, what else? We talked about a number of rules. The rules will help her stop feeling like she's in charge of the world. And so some of the rules I talked about, one of them I don't think the guardians are going to enforce is not letting the dog on the furniture for 30 days. If you're not going to enforce that, what I would say is the dog's only allowed on the furniture with an invitation. So if she jumps up on her own, now if she jumps up here, unless she has a physical ailment, what I would normally do is just stand up, and that eliminates the lap, and the dog will jump down automatically. Instead of giving the dog an elevator ride, which is a reward, or telling the dog to get down or forcing it down. Now, if it gets on the couch, what you can do is take a treat out, touch the nose, and throw it on the ground. When she jumps down to get it, we say the word off to put it in context. And then she comes back, then I want to try to block her. So if you're not going to block her from being on the furniture for 30 days, I would just say she's only allowed to be on the furniture with an invitation and only for good behavior. So if she's up here and she starts barking, she has to get down. Or gets to drink water, which comes back, she need another invitation. Other rules that I suggest would be to make her sit before we let her in or out of the door. Tell her to sit once. If she doesn't sit within 3 seconds, walk away, sit down somewhere, wait 1 minute. Ask Google for a 60-second timer. Then go back to the door and repeat. This time walk away for 2 minutes if she doesn't sit, then 4 minutes, then 8 minutes. And as soon as you go to the door and say sit, she sits, open the door like there's a remote control in her butt. That becomes the reward, is being able to go outside. Yes, you've got cold tootsies. Let me see. I first do it one direction and then do it both directions, in and out. I'm also going to go over more rules, but also teaching a dog to leave a room can be really helpful. If this is the doorway to the room, I'm in the room, that's the hallway, and I want to teach the dog to leave the room, I just go and touch the dog's nose with a treat, throw it 3 feet outside the hallway, the dog runs out there to get it and licks it up, and I say the word out. Then I have it come back, I throw it, the other half of the treat, repeat that. I usually do that with every area in the house you're going to ask her to leave. So since you're going to ask her to stay out of the kitchen, one of the rules, when you're feeding her or during dinner time for her, throw that treat out, stand behind in the kitchen, throw the treat outside, she goes and gets it and say the word out. So now you can say out for any room, and she gleefully runs out because she's been motivated and rewarded for doing so. And it's just helpful, especially when we have people over like during the holidays, or we have kids and she's a nuisance, or there's poopy diapers and she wants to get in their business. We say out, she happily leaves, and then we go give her a treat after the fact for doing it. Let me see what else. Other rules. Not being allowed to be within 7 feet of a human who's eating. We're going to use those escalating consequences, kind of the same way I show you in the video above. Hiss first, stand up, turn to face her. A third one is march towards her. The fourth one I didn't go over because I don't think the guardian's going to need it. But now the dog sees a litany of things that are going to happen. And I can use them in concert too. I can, like, if let's say I had surgery and I dropped some drugs on the floor and I'm worried she's going to come in and lick them up, I might hiss, stand up, and march at her in one step all at once. That's a stronger response. But always start with the small. So always hiss first, then go the second, and then the third. And then if you forget what those are, message me. I have videos I can share with you about what the escalated consequences are. I also like to see her getting a little bit more exercise. She's not fat. She's a little stocky, but that's just how she's built. But she gets up at 4 in the morning. I wonder if part of that is a correlation to not sleeping too much during the day. Dogs sleep about 17 hours on a day on an average basis. We don't realize how often they sleep. So if you keep your dog a little bit more active, try that for a couple days. If you don't want to do the stairs because of her joints, maybe just use the laser or throw, whatever it is. But get her some exercise and then try that out and then see how that worked. And then if it works, great, continue that. If not, try to give her a little bit more exercise the next day and the next day. But the idea is, again, we're setting her for success by depleting that excess energy and trying to help her test out being free so that if, we do leave her out and if she's not having access to not destroying anything, it's nice to let us know, hey, there's somebody trying to break in or steal the boat or something along those lines. Right? Yes. Let me see. I've been trying to remember something and my brain has not been coming, but it just finally popped in. One of the issues that she has is the sound of the door to the kennel closing. And a lot of sounds spook her. And so, I think you're acting a little bit for that one, yes. So I think, we use something called counter conditioning to help dogs get over sounds. It's like a replacement. So what I would do is have somebody in there with their hand on the kennel, and I have somebody else in here with a treat. And let her start nibbling, smash the treat, let her start nibbling on it. As soon as she starts nibbling, come up with a code word or just be on the Bluetooth or your phone and say, okay. And then the person spends 1 second of movement of that. And if it's the last little part, then have the door kind of ready to go. So that's the sound that she hears. When you're doing this, she needs to have the sound, the treat in her mouth before the stimulus happens. In this case, the sound of the door or the induction I would make a list of all the things she's fearful of and help her get over each and every one of them. So if the induction fan is what freaks her out, you're going to have to move her far enough away where she'll sit and take the treat. If she won't sit or take the treat, she's saying that the stimulus, in this case the induction, is too intense. We make it less intense by increasing the distance. So keep on moving further and further away in the house until you get to a point where she can hear it, but she doesn't feel threatened. And then you practice having her chew on this while it goes on and off. And every time that she's about to finish the treat, we need to signal the person so they turn the induction fan off. The only time she hears the stimulus is when the counter conditioning reward or reinforcer is in her mouth. And then once she can you get 5 times in a row where you put her in her mouth and turn it on and she doesn't blink and she doesn't look stiff, then we take 1 or 2 steps closer to it and repeat the process. And keep repeating that process until you can be right next to it, turning on or off, and without a treat, and she just looks up at you and doesn't have a problem with it. You do the same principle with the fans. Now the fans are a little bit harder because they spin and stop spinning. So really what you might want to do is put the treat in her mouth, and then turn on and off for a sec so it just moves just a little bit. And I have it on the slowest setting for the fan so it gets used to it. I've also seen one person that actually did made a fan. It wasn't a real fan. They just took a cardboard deal and had some spokes, and they just have it going a little bit so the dog's looking at it going like clockwise as opposed to be on the ceiling. And again, it just moved a little bit. They can stop it whenever they want, and they're giving the dog the reinforcer. After a while, the dog's like, yeah, it's a fan. It moves. I have treats in my mouth when it's happening. I like that. Use passive training for new commands. Like I said, if you're going to teach her that, every time she takes a drink of water, say water. Every time she takes her food, say pizza or pasta or whatever the word is you want. Name each individual toy. She stretched, and the guardian said, "Oh, what a good stretch." I taught one of my dogs to stretch on command. Every time he stretched, I pet him and say, "Stretch." Now, because they stretch, he sticks his butt in the air, waggles his tail, stands up, and goes, "Arr!" And he'll do it 10 times in a row on command. So it's a fun way to train your dog, and it's very easy. Now, because she's a smarty pants, I would actually suggest the guardians try to train her how to do some new tricks. Now, if you want, I've got a lead trainer named James. I can have him come out and show you how to do it or do it for you. Or you can just go to YouTube and just search for easy pet tricks and teach her a new trick. Maybe the guardian's flip-flop. 1 week, guardian A teaches her how to do a circle. So if the dog's here, I just take the treat and I'll lead the dog in a circle and then give it a treat. It's so simple. It'll take no time to teach her. And then you say circle and she does a little circle. It's a nice way to distract her. She's worried about something or fearful about something. You say circle, she does a circle. Now you've distracted her away from her fears. And all week long, before you let her out or whatever it is, you circle before I pet you, circle before I feed you, or whatever it is. And all week long she practices that. At the end of the week, the next guardian B takes over and they teach a different trick. And all week long you practice that one trick until she's really proficient. And then next week, and go back and forth. And each one of you try to do 4 new tricks. At the end of the year, she should have 8 new commands. I don't know how many commands she has now, but when you have a dog that's a little bit insecure or twitchy like this, teaching them new tricks and commands is a great way to boost their self-esteem and confidence. Same thing with petting with a purpose, because now she's earning that affection as opposed to having to, or just getting it for free, which I'm sure she likes, but it doesn't help her in terms of her character. What do we think? Guardians need to make sure that they're eating something before they feed her. I think I talked about that in the feeding video. Practice the leave it and the drop it. Now, drop it is one that's really best done when it's just casual. You're not sitting down to practice the drop. When she has one of her toys, just casually get up, pull a treat out of your pocket, walk over, hold it in front of her mouth, and follow the instructions I went over above. Now, the drop it or the leave it exercise, I would practice a couple times a day. At first, where you're caging it, we'll probably be able to do that. Much you'll be able to drop it and just leave your hand here. Have your hand ready to collapse if you need to, but she was doing so well. I bet she'd go like that, just drop it and have your hand here, and she'd wait for her to look at you, and then start elongating it. Now, once you can drop like 3 things, and she just looks up at you and doesn't try to get them, remember, never give her the object on the floor. Then I would actually maybe make it a more structured or a difficult one, put a treat, and then put her on a leash and walk her from the TV across those. And every time she's about to look at the treat or get to it, you say, leave it, she looks up at you, and the treat's coming from here as she passes over it. And so when she gets done and she looks for the treat, oh, it's in the past. And there's another one coming up. So you teach her to leave things alone that are on the ground, which is what the primary reason we need this. But if we do that and practice the drop, then I think you'll have better luck next time if she's a terrier after all. Next time she captures a rodent or a bird or animal outside. And she's relaxing, I can tell, because she's getting a little bit lower and lower in my lap. This is the first time I've been touching her in the session. And remember, when you have guests come over, the more exposure she has around them with positive things happening without the person petting, the more she's going to be interested in them. Your guests really need to play hard to get. And if you're interested in her, then she's going, oh, you're validating my fears. If you ignore her, she'll get closer and closer. And again, that's why we're going to leave those treats like I talked about. All right, is there anything else I forgot to go over that you guys want me to mention? All right. Now, if you have questions, there's other techniques. The Guardian's been watching my videos she mentioned before when the session started. So I've got thousands of videos. So if there's anything that you forgot in the session or something we didn't cover, please message me. If I don't hear from you, I assume that means everything's going great. Thousands of clients, I can't follow up with everybody multiple times. But I don't care if it's 7 years from now. If you have a question, text me or call me. I might not remember you personally, but if you text me a picture of your dog, hey, you worked with Lexi and I have a question about she's doing this. How do I make her run away from the door? I probably have a video I can share with you. All right, Lexi, you did very good today. She's like, yes, well, I get a whole bunch of treats. And I got an extra meal. I'm probably going to skip dinner tonight. And maybe use the kennel deal as for dinner instead, like I talked about, instead of doing it over there. All right, well, this is Lexi, and this is Lexi's Roadmap to Success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you mean it.